to keep us safe by turning Afghanistan into a functioning democracy. But suddenly the man Britain and other Western countries had got behind has decided to started to sound distinctly unpredictable. To put it mildly, he's even said he might think about joining, he's reputed even to have said he might think about joining the Taliban. Mark Urban reports.
Hamid Khazai has a way of testing his friends' patience, particularly when he blames them for his country's woes.
What I said about the election was all true. This was to clarify that Afghanistan is a country and that it belongs to Afghans, and that the Afghans must make sure that this is seen by Afghans, the government, and that our international partners recognize that there can be this sensitivity.
Mr. Karzai must walk a line between seeming like a credible national leader and gratifying his powerful friends. But the White House feels that recent comments have gone too far.
Is Karzai our ally?
Karzai is the democratically elected leader of Afghanistan.
Well, of course, they're quite disgusted with some of his recent statements, but I don't think they're in a position to dump him, and there's really no alternative but just to work around him and try to carry on what the U.S. thinks it's doing in Afghanistan, which is a highly questionable, risky venture. But they think they have a military program, and I think they're going to work directly with ministries and just try to bypass Karzai.
As to why the Americans don't just get rid of Hamid Karzai, you have to delve a fair distance back into the annals of military history to see just how unsatisfactory the outcome of such direct action could be. To the Vietnam War, in fact. Back in 1963, the Americans had President Diem, a client leader running an inefficient government. It had a reputation for corruption, and the president's shadowy brother was far too powerful. If that dilemma sounds familiar, the remedy in the shape of a CIA-backed South Vietnamese coup seems like a thing of the past.
When the United States in the past, during the Cold War, has tried to remove leaders by coups or by force, the truth always comes out, and it doesn't do them any good at all. Engineering coups against a puppet leader is usually a recipe for disaster.
Go back 25 years, actually in Afghanistan itself, and you can find a rather more successful incident of changing horses, as it were, in terms of local leadership. The Soviets moved one man out of power and put another Afghan called Najibullah in his place, who proved a far more successful political operator and set the conditions for the Soviet withdrawal from Afghanistan. But there, the Soviets were working through a particularly favourable local power structure when they carried out their constitutional coup. Najibullah's Soviet backers were able to use the Afghan party to help them and had years to groom their successor. President Karzai has been careful to clip his rival's wings.
Afghanistan, the key to the whole place is it is ethnically diverse, and you don't have an army that has any ethnic cohesion. And we installed an intelligence machinery, a police machinery, an army and defense ministry machinery that was predominantly Tajik from the Northern Alliance group. And although there have been shows of putting on a Pashtun front, the Pashtuns being, of course, the ethnic majority in Afghanistan, and Karzai himself is a Pashtun, but basically just a frontman for a Tajik-controlled army.
So the uneasy cohabitation with Hamid Karzai is set to continue, with both sides alternating diplomatic pleasantries with expressions of frustration.
President Karzai squeaked through a fraudulent election last summer, and as a result of that, he is the president of Afghanistan. And the Americans have accepted that result. They've had to accept that result, and therefore they're stuck with him. There's not very much they can do about that. They could try to drop him, but how would they do that constitutionally without making things worse? They could try to persuade him, or they could try to work around him. And what they're obviously trying to do at the moment is to bring enough pressure to bear to indicate that their tolerance is not unlimited, but to stay engaged, because he's the only president they've got to work with.
The Afghan leader presents his American counterpart with delicate decisions about protocol. President Karzai is expected in Washington next month, and everyone will be looking for signs that the rift may be deepening.
Well, joining us now from Washington is the US Assistant Secretary of State, P.J. Crowley. Mr. Crowley, what are countries like yours and ours over here doing, risking the lives of young people for a man who claims that we rigged the elections?
Well, the United States and Britain and NATO, they are in Afghanistan because it's in our national and international interest to be there. We have vital national interests in making sure that, that there are not future risks that emanate out of Afghanistan, as we have experienced on 9/11 and as Europe has experienced as well. So that's why we're there. We're not there to prop up any particular government. The choice of leader is up to the Afghans. You know, we are going to work with President Karzai and his government, but at the same time we're going to work to establish effective government at the national level, regional and local levels, so that ultimately the key here is the relationship between the Afghan government and its own people will all benefit if that bond is strengthened.
But the fact is, we are propping up this man. We've saved his life, and in exchange he turns around and claims we fixed the elections.
Well, I beg to differ. We are not propping him up. He is the elected leader of the Afghan government. We are now working collectively to try to grow the capacity of that government at all levels to be able to, sustain an effective police, sustain an effective military.
You don't seriously suggest this guy could stay in office without the support of NATO?
Well, ultimately, we are trying to create a government that will stand on its own, that will develop an effective economy, one that is based on, say, other agricultural products besides opium. So this is in our interest to do that, and this is a partnership that we are trying to build.
You've mentioned opium. Peter Galbraith, the former deputy UN envoy there, has hinted that perhaps President Karzai's got a bit of a taste for it himself. I mean, what's your explanation of why he's behaving like this?
Well, he's a crucial political figure to the extent we see real politics going on in Afghanistan, then President Karzai has to, as your previous piece noted, he's got to have a relationship with the international community, but he also has to establish an effective relationship with his own people and the mix of tribes that are unique to Afghanistan. We understand that. At the same time, we have stated clearly that we have concerns about some of the things that he said recently, and Secretary Clinton talked to him late last week. The President's going to meet him here in Washington next month, and we will work through the concerns that he had. One of the things he said was
that visit will go ahead next month, will it?
Yes, I expect that he will come here. I mean, he said, for example, that he doesn't want to be a puppet for the United States or the national community. We agree with that. We are trying to make sure that there is an effective government there that works on behalf of its people. That's what we're trying to achieve. Once we achieve that, then we can start to reduce our military presence there and transition to where Afghanistan has a normal relationship with the rest of the world.
Is there no sanction the United States could bring to bear on this man?
Well, obviously, we want to help him. We have to work with him. There are things that we expect President Karzai to do. We were encouraged by the things he said last fall in his inaugural speech, and now we're going to work with him and make sure that he carries out that program that he outlined. One of those things will be, making sure that there's an effective government utilizing very effectively and efficiently the resources that the international community is bringing to Afghanistan. So there are very definitely things that we have that we expect from him, just as there are things that he expects from us.
And there's no question of you cutting him loose?
Well, that's not a decision for the United States. That's a decision for ultimately the Afghan people. He is the leader of Afghanistan, and we're working with that government, but we're also working with leaders at the regional and local level to make sure that they can deliver on what the Afghan people expect of their government.
Mr. Crowley, thank you very much for joining us. Thank you.
A pleasure.